And then then sort of as my business developed, I realized that actually there's so many different challenges, especially, I mean, not that there aren't any for men, but for women, there's some quite unique challenges throughout a lifetime. And I was writing some material for a gym that I delivered training to yesterday, and we were talking about the challenges through a woman's lifetime in relation to exercise, but actually it really is like an opportunity. And we were trying to like reframe it. If you Google, you know, birth trauma or hysterectomy or menopause, it's all quite negative stuff. And actually, we've got a huge opportunity at these key points in our life to really reassess, like, what does exercise do for us? What purpose does it serve? How should we be doing it? And so I think, you know, we're really unique beings, and traditionally, you know, gym programs have been written with a man in mind, and kind of women are seen as a smaller version of that, but actually we're quite unique and we're quite different. So it's been fantastic to learn more about my body as a woman, and stuff I wish that we'd been taught at school, you know, like about your menstrual cycle and how powerful you can really be at certain times. And actually, when you start transitioning into perimenopause and beyond, like what's actually happening in your body and what does that mean for your training? So it's actually really fascinating, and there's so much that, you know, you could go into so many rabbit holes on it. So sometimes I have to really pull myself back, because you know, we can't all be experts in all things. But yeah, so I sort of start, always my specialism really starts with pelvic health, but actually pelvic health is something that's impacted by all of those key times in a woman's life. And then we are really thinking about those considerations about how to train, because it's so important. It's like, it really is, especially for menopause and beyond. You know, training, exercise is a non-negotiable if we want to live a long and healthy life. So yeah.
That's interesting though, because obviously, there's these stages in life, and people think, when do I stop training? And it's like, you don't, do you? There's always something you can do. And I have this a lot when people go, oh, I've got older, things are starting to hurt, so I need to stop. It's like, no, you just need to maybe step back a bit. And then you can gain back strength, and then, you know, still not get back to where you were necessarily if you're getting older, but you can, as we've said before, slow down the aging process. But I think, speaking about menopause, we had Helen Hall on ages ago, and she was talking about it, and it was kind of like one of those things with like low mood and all of that, and then, like, you know, you go and see the doctor and they think you're depressed, or they want to give you antidepressants, and it's like, well, it's not that. It's menopausal symptoms, and actually training helps with that, doesn't it?
Definitely. But I think that we've got this like real cycle, and sort of society has fed into it that women are quite vulnerable and need to be protected at key times of, you know, pregnancy, postnatally, and menopause. You know, you're kind of, if you Google that, you're going to dry up and die, you know, it's like dire. And
you've outstayed your welcome.
You're outstayed your welcome. But I see it a lot with the women that I work with. They kind of, some of the menopausal symptoms, you know, gaining weight around your middle, and therefore your risk of stress incontinence goes up, and then you're less likely to move, and then you're losing your bone and your muscle mass, and your risk of osteoporosis goes up, and you can get caught in this really vicious cycle. And then your movement bubble just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you end up with those special classes for like over 60s. And actually, we don't need special classes. We just need to really understand what training we need and what it can do for us. So I think we just need to understand the barriers that people find to training and understand them, so then we can give them a way forward. You know, especially, you know, like I talk about pelvic health all the time, so it's totally in my bubble, but you know, just stress incontinence. Half of all women will suffer with stress incontinence, and men do too, but obviously women talk about it a little bit more. And that stops people moving because they don't want to leak in public, or they just stop doing all the things that would actually be really beneficial for them, because there's no education or understanding about it. So that's a real challenge.
A quick one on that. You just said half of all women, so that's obviously a lot. And
is that over a certain age? Half of all women over 40?
1 in 2 women who give birth. 1 in 2 women who give birth will suffer with stress incontinence. I don't actually know the figures for women who don't have children, but it costs the NHS I can't remember the figure now, billions, billions.
Yeah.
And actually we've got so many preventative measures and responsive measures we can put in place, but again, the dots don't always get joined up.
But this is where it can then be self-fulfilling, like what you just said about getting osteoporosis and blah blah and all of this sort of stuff. It can be self-fulfilling, can't it? Because then women can then say, well, I can't walk down the street without this happening, so therefore lifting weights is just not going to happen. And then you get lots of stories about women joining gyms or joining joining exercise programs and go, I'll just stand at the back because I leak, so therefore I'll do it over there, and then nobody sees it and what have you. But that's okay because that's perfectly normal.
Yeah, that's a really good word, Pete. You just used
that's not true though, is it?
It's not normal.
No,
it's not. It's really common. So common, but not normal. But we've got this kind of historic thing, and I hear stories every day of women that go to their healthcare professionals and they ask questions about what's happening to them, and they get fobbed off with things like, well, you had a baby, what do you expect? Or, well, you're menopausal, or I'm writing a book, it's called The Shit My Gynae Said, because I'm sure there's some great gynecologists out there, but the things that come out of healthcare professionals' mouths about women's pelvic health, it is laughable, but it's shocking at the same time. So yeah, women just go, oh, well, I'll just have to put up with that then. And for decades, women were never ever talked about vaginas and pelvic health, ever. And so we've still got decades and decades of women who aren't talking about this stuff. Yeah, actually, it's happening to so many of us, and is a huge reason why women aren't moving, and then aren't loading their bones and their muscles and all the good stuff, and then are getting horrendous chronic illnesses and diseases and living really long but unhealthy lives.
Are you seeing are you seeing things change? I mean, what I was going to say, I remember I've been doing this for close to 25 years now, and when I started, like you said, there used to be these over 50s classes, quite common. And nowadays, I think maybe it's because I'm getting older as well, but you think 50 is not old now. No. It's not old, but there used to be these over 50s classes, which were really, and because I started, in my about 20 years old, for me then 30 years to 50 is a long way off. And you had these over 50s classes that were really kind of scaled back. They were really tame. They were really, like you say, wrapping people in cotton wool and being very, very careful, bubble wrapping people and giving them really simple, certainly not heavy exercises to do. And nowadays, I train lots of people and women in their 50s and 60s. And like I said, Edith seems to be getting stronger every year. But is it changing? I mean, I know there's lots of stuff on TV now, and there's more awareness, and there seems to be a kind of a drive for more awareness, especially around women and training and health and fitness and strength and everything else. Are we slowly changing and getting better?
Yes, I would say yes, to put a positive spin on it. I mean, we're long gone are the days of, Cindy Crawford videos and leotards and women just doing cardio for hours on end. I think we are moving away from that. But there's still a lot of fear around weight training, like women, if you go into a mainstream gym, you tend to get sweaty men grunting in the weight section. Whatever Globo gym you go to, that's still a thing. And women can still feel quite uncomfortable. And you get a lot of mansplaining, men telling women that they're doing things wrong. And, that still happens all the time. So I think, like your space, like a really open, welcoming space where it's totally normal that men and women all just weight training together. I think we are getting there, and there's lots of brilliant women's only spaces, which is fantastic too. But I really hope we get to a point where we don't actually have to have separate spaces to make it happen. But I think we've got a lot of sort of societal stories around women doing strength training. So many women say to me, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get bulky. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish we had enough testosterone to get bulky. We're like desperately trying to cling on to our muscle mass here. I'd love some testosterone, please. But